tales for dark nights.
Knuckle Supper. Written by Drew Stepek. Performed here by Jason Hill. Chapter 10. Violators. Christmas rolled around, which was a good thing for all of us. Dumb people carry more cash around during the happiest time of the year, so it was really easy to make money being a stick-up kid. It was also a cleaner way to stay alive, and not so many people had to die. The heroin operation was running smoothly too. Bait took the money the Desians made selling the heroin to a drop box we set up with Eldritch. He, in return, dropped a reasonable amount of uncut, stolen H for her to pick up and bring back to my house. Then, Des and I weighed and cut the heroin with baby laxatives and ephedrine. Finally, Bait divided the stolen heroin out to the undercover Desians who dealt in Culver City. The process went full circle and the money came back to me. I counted it and bundled it, called Eldritch, and the cycle continued. Sure, Bait wasn't fulfilling her role of bringing me Johns to kill and eat and get high on, but I decided that this was a better way for her to earn her keep. After her sadistic performance at the gym, I rethought stealing her humanity. As far as we knew, the battle stakes had no idea about what we were doing under their noses. And the only gang getting screwed was the Mexicans because they weren't paying King Cobra as much as they were supposed to. Bait shook my shoulder as I sprawled out on the couch, half asleep, listening to some motivational music by Johnny Thunders.
RJ, wake up!
I snorted and rolled over. Can it wait until later? I didn't know why I was so tired. I hadn't been doing any real work for a long time other than counting bills. Put the money on the table, Bait. I'll deal with it later. She bit down on her lip as her face slid behind her hair.
That's the thing. I think some of Dez's friends are mad at us.
Us? There is no us. I wiped my eyes with my palms and flossed some nap plaque out of my teeth with my fingernail. Shaky at first, I sat up, grabbed a silver spoon off the coffee table and fired up some leftover dust and blood using a pen and wrinkled tinfoil. Groggily, I wheezed. What are you talking about?
Well,
her left eye parted out of the center of her hair fort and twitched erratically.
People aren't paying all the money they owe this week.
Why? Didn't they sell all the shit?
I don't know, they just told me to bring more.
So where's the money? Are those little shits using all the heroin? The bad idea of putting a little girl in charge of the day-to-day affairs of our covert operation suddenly made me feel claustrophobic in my own skin. Whether the Desians were pussy vampires or not, they were much stronger than Bait would ever be. And with me not directly in the equation, they were starting to overstep their bounds.
No, they're selling it.
I lofted a huge cloud of bodily exhaust into her face, causing her to cough. This is real simple, Bait. It's a point A to point B process. I put the pen back in my mouth and returned to the foil. Out of the side of my mouth, I asked again, "Where is the money?" She looked upset.
They said they want to get paid.
I huffed in a huge mouthful of vapor. Realizing that I bit off more than I could chew, I coughed it back into Bait's face. Some goop torpedoed out and splashed her on the chin. She sneezed and wiped it off.
Why are you spitting on me?
She knocked the poor man's chalice out of my hand. Giggly and high, but still irritated, I jumped to react. I extended my arm, grabbed her by the straps of her overalls, and threw her to the floor, holding her down.
Clean it up, whore,
I demanded, too dizzy to focus on what I was doing. Leroy and Skillet, who I thought were outside, shot up from behind the couch and growled. I grabbed a tabloid with my free hand and waved it at them.
Piss off, both of you.
They stood steadfast and put their front paws on the back pillows of the couch. They flip-flopped between growling and panting, like the spasmodic animals they were. Leroy let out a furious bark. Somehow, Bait managed to rotate her head and submerge her chiclet teeth into my wrist, causing me to let go and lose my balance while I attempted to get to my feet to face off against the disobedient hounds. I fell back on the couch and she made a run for it. No longer simply being mischievous, Leroy and Skillet blitzed me and held me down. Skillet locked onto my wrist like a shark snapping at chum as Leroy pinned my shoulders down and bumped my forehead with his like a rhinoceros. As if I had just stubbed my toe or smacked my head on a cabinet, my knee-jerk reaction discharged my rage. I flipped Leroy over at his gut and volleyed him across the room. He slammed into the turntable. The needle dragged across the record for a split second and then ceased to emit any power whatsoever. The dog fluttered on his back a little like a turtle and then bounced himself back up to a full stance. He snarled at me with a droopy-eyed look of disgust and then pranced down the hall, following Bait. I tore my arm away from Skillet's grip. He licked at the tearing arm hair and flesh out of the corner of his mouth as it stretched away from my body like a tug rope. He gnawed at it, then shook his head in disapproval. Before I got situated again on the couch, Skillet smacked me in the face with his tail as he followed his unruly canine co-conspirator. I sunk down into the couch cushion, grabbed a t-shirt and wrapped it around my arm.
Get back here!
I bellowed at the three of them. Rather than locking herself into the bathroom with Leroy and Skillet as expected, Bait, followed by both dogs, returned. They barreled toward me like they were on the front lines at the beaches of Normandy. Bait emulated the dogs and began growling, twirling the shower radio over her head like she was wielding a mace. Then, standing over me, she pounded the radio against my sternum. As if it were a planned attack, Leroy and Skillet both jumped and scratched my chest with their robust paws. "Stop!" I begged. The power of all three soldiers caused a wet fart to seep out of my ass. I felt diarrhea slink down my thigh, onto my calf, and then onto the floor. Sidetracked, the dumb Great Dane started licking the shit up. It was no wonder his breath always smelled like Long Beach contaminated shrimp that had been stewing in a pool of vomit inside a pig carcass in the sun for a week. The distraction gave me the opportunity to reverse and overtake the onslaught. I rotated my body off the couch and dropped onto the floor. I arched my back to try and stand as my right foot sloshed around in Rhea still inside my pant leg. Before I could tell the three musketeers to desist again, they all retreated. The bathroom door slammed closed. Not to be defeated by a little girl and the two dumbest, most uncoordinated dogs on the face of the earth, I stomped down the hall toward them, spattering my runny poop everywhere. Stopping at the door, I took a deep breath, placed my cold fingertips over my closed eyelids, and massaged my temples with my thumbs. Trying to release some of my anger, I bit as hard as I could into the t-shirt that was wrapped around my arm. Calmly, I asked, "Bait, what's going on?" She said nothing. The only sound coming from the other side of the door was her playing bumper boat in the tub with the hounds and then panting uncontrollably. "Bait? No!" "No what?" I returned as I continued to rub my face. It wasn't a question that required a yes or no response. I took my fingers off my eyes and gripped the door handle. She sucked some agitated snot back into her throat and swallowed it. "No!" she yelled again, this time with a little more punch. I turned the knob cautiously and I cracked the door open, only far enough to peek inside. A half-corroded battery, that I assumed fell out of my shattered shower radio, beamed me in the eyebrow. I counted backward in my head to remain cool. My anger, mixed with the dizzying effect of the drugs, whispered coaxing messages to my brain, reminding me that the sword of a little girl had just anally lanced me. I blinked the corrosive particles out of my eye. The three of them were packed into the tub like it was a miniature submarine. I dragged my poo foot into the door and slowly opened it with my left arm. I slid into the bathroom sideways and made my way to the throne. No projectiles were catapulted at me. Leroy and Skillet, bushed from all the exercise, shook off and let their guards down. I dunked my gross foot into the toilet and sloshed it around in a sad attempt to wash off my mess. Without looking at the lot of them, I reached over and put my hand on Bait's wet head. Spray-on black hair dye was smeared all over her face and shoulders. I wiped it off my hand onto my pant leg. Leroy extended a peace offering by licking my hand, signifying that the war was over. "Tell me what's going on, Bait, and why you didn't come home with my money." "You're just gonna be mad at me." Continuing not to make eye contact with her, fearing I would rip her skull from her body, I said, "So beating the hell out of me, getting my dogs all riled up and turned against me, this was something you thought would make me happy?" I spoke slowly, like a parent trying to further investigate unsatisfactory behavior. I placed my hand on her head. She shook me away. "You were the one who was about to hit me." "I wasn't going to hit you. You knocked the last little bit of drugs I had out of my hand." "Oh, so your drugs are more important to you than I am?" She pushed herself against the soap dish in the tub. I reached further toward her and placed my hand back on her head. For all intents and purposes, yes, the drugs were more important to me than she was. After all, they helped keep me alive, another question in itself. Rather than get into a circular argument about why I existed, I played to her neediness. "No, Bait, you're more important than the drugs." I dipped a half-lit cigarette into a claw-induced laceration on the back of my neck and flicked it into my mouth. "You mind if I smoke?" "I don't care," she huffed as she started petting the dogs. "It's your house." Or is it that bitches? Although I continued to avoid locking eyes with her, I heard her voice starting to give way to whimpering. "Bait, please answer the question. Why aren't they going to pay me? I thought we all discussed how the system was going to work. No one was going to get paid until we refunneled the cash we made from the heroin into buying new heroin that wasn't stolen from the battle snakes." I stepped back. "I'm not blaming you, but that is what we all agreed on. It was all really simple." She hugged Leroy's big hairy mane. "I've been getting high with them for a while now. They've been giving me heroin." My eyes shut. Concerned, I continued to calm the conversation. "I thought we agreed that you wouldn't use if I let you live here. You told me that since you'd been on the street, you didn't use that much and that you didn't even really like it." Trying to camouflage her response under the thundering tongues of Leroy and skillet-guzzling bathwater, she quietly admitted, "I lied." Petting her head, I asked, "So, you've been using this whole time?" "That's not what I lied about." Remembering why I hated kids, I steadied my hand. "Okay. What did you lie about?" Figuring that a day full of surprises had come to an end, I looked over to her. Nonchalantly, she answered, "Pretty much everything." "Huh?" "The first night I came over here, you remember, right?" "Yes," I exhaled. "How could I forget?" "You were supposed to be my first screw. I had just met the pimp you killed that day. I only ran away from home at the beginning of the summer." My forehead dropped into my hand that wasn't straddling her skull. Damn it, Bait. I should have known that someone who was so lacking in any kind of street smarts could never have been on the streets for 2 years. "I'm sorry, RJ. I didn't have anywhere to go." "So, you chose here. Here. Of all the places in the world. So, now you're going to tell me that Dez's little assholes have been paying and that you've been stealing my money, right?" Her whimpering built into bulbous teardrops that plopped into the half-full bath. She shrugged away from me and snuck behind her dog guardians. "No." "No what?" "Fine. You lied to me so you could go on some romantic vampire adventures that you read about in some dumb books. See? It's not glamorous. In any way. Are you satisfied? As much as I regretted what I said next, at that moment, it felt like all there was to say. Now dry off and take the money you stole to the bus station or airport or wherever and go home to your mommy and daddy. I didn't steal your money, she said. Instead of giving me the money, I've been asking them to get me high. She clutched onto Leroy, almost strangling him. Then I let them fuck me. What? I shouted as I smashed my t-shirt-covered arm back into the mirror. I'm sorry. I wanted to feel like one of you. I thought if I got high and fucked them that maybe they would bite me and turn me into a vampire. I plucked my hand out of the smashed glass and the rest of the wall behind the vanity. I nabbed my cell phone out of the sink and opened it to call Des. She lunged toward me, trying to grab the phone. Don't tell them I told you, she pleaded frantically. Don't call them. Des's voicemail picked up. Des, it's RJ. Did you know that your little idiots are raping Bait? What's going on? We agreed that you would help us and that none of this could ever happen. I hung up the phone and tossed it back into the sink. Des knows. What do you mean, Des knows? Des was the first one to fuck me. Too mad to think, much less speak, I raced to the door, grabbed my phone again and called Tahoe. He picked up. Yo, RJ. Tell everyone to get to the goddamn garage, now! I screamed. Relax. Relax nothing. Make sure every one of you sorry-ass motherfuckers are there. Now! But no buts. Des isn't picking up his phone. Make sure that little twat and all his lemmings are there. I hung up and furiously stomped and huffed and puffed around, looking for a sweatshirt. Bait lifted herself out of the tub, using Skillet's head. There's more. Like what? Like all that isn't enough, I yelled. You little liar! I stormed out of the house. Whatever other lies she had in store for me would have to wait until after I dealt with Des. I think we all know why we're here, I said to a packed garage of knucklers. Des was the only one missing. I left Bait at home. The meeting was no place for children. Nobody spoke. They all just looked down. So, no one has anything to say to me. They continued to look at the silt-covered cement. I walked over to Tahoe. Nothing to say, huh? Big man? It's just... I fired into his ear like a drill sergeant. What the fuck is wrong with you all? You big, retarded twat! You have killed hundreds of people you didn't like. As a matter of fact, I saw you rip a guy to pieces. Well, that's right. Pieces. For giving you a cooked-up bag full of ephedrine. That's nice. Who was there to clean up your mess that time? I swatted Tahoe in the back of the head and continued down the line. Parker, how many family pets have you shredded and filled with heroin? No red flags there? Most fucking coyotes don't leave syringes next to their prey. I stood over him and shoved him into the ground. I held his face to the floor. Who cleaned up your stupid little ass when you were passed out in some old lady's backyard? I guess we can just say that you're lucky that the sun didn't come up. Struggling to talk, he hacked out. You! Pico laughed. I jumped across the room. Did you just laugh, you twisted old fuck? I grabbed both his legs and pulled them out from under him. When his back hit the ground, I flicked my arms outward and snapped both of his femurs. Why don't you tell everyone here about when you tried to anally rape a batwanger? Feel free. Who saved your ass that time? Oh, no red flags there either. We had to kill it and ditch its body. I picked him up by one of his broken limbs and launched him through the windshield of the Nova. And the rest of you ungrateful piss ants. I have a story for every single one of you. That would be except for you hyped bottom-feeding nobodies who somehow managed to sneak into my gang without my knowledge. That's right. My gang. The Pee-wees stood in the corner. They all had their faces hidden behind their wannabe Des emo hair. Not for long, one of them whispered. I knew who it was. The one who had been cleaning our house. It was the little prick that wised off to me all the time. I hope I didn't just hear something from you, kid. This isn't a fraternity. I jumped over to him. Do you and all your bunnies think that I would give a squirt of shit for you at all? This isn't about being in some clubhouse with your fudge friends. This is about survival. The kid looked up from his gloomy daze. Des says you're soft. Don't do anything, RJ, Tahoe yelled from across the garage. I grabbed the kid by his hands. A fury went through my body that was different than knocking someone off to get high. I'm not sure what Des has taught you about being a vampire, but there is something that I'm pretty sure he was too lazy to teach you. The other Desian stepped backward. What's the matter, boys? I'm sure you don't know either. They took another step back. I guess we can all learn a lesson today, can't we? Tahoe yelled from across the room. RJ, don't do this. We can get through this. Cobra and Copperhead don't know anything. I turned to him. Shut up. I pinned the kid's head down on a table. There is this funny thing that you can't learn from Hollywood movies about what you are. Even more so. You can't learn it from drug addicts you see on TV. I told him and shoved his left hand into his own mouth. I'm a drug addict. I'm a drug dealer. I'm a gang member. With his chin pinned like a vice, I used the top of his head to crush and chew through his own fingers, digit by digit, directly through his hand to the wrist. Please, please God, stop. I can't understand you. Are you still hungry? I pulled his right arm away, breaking it behind his back. Then, I shoved that hand in and used his teeth again, even though some were falling out due to the strength of the bone. I hammered away at the top of his head with my palm. Gore flew everywhere. His choking intensified, and once I got him down to his second nub, I chucked his ass across the room. I wiped my hands off on my pants. Tahoe looked at me, shocked. You have something to say, Tahoe? Does anyone else have something to fucking say to me? The big man looked at his shoes. No. Why don't you tell everyone here the big secret that you have apparently all forgotten to pass on to these disrespectful children? Tahoe mumbled. Again? I can hear you, but let's make sure they can hear you too. Limbs don't grow back. I looked at the kid in the corner, one of his boys trying desperately to wrap his stumps with grease rags. Not much of a badass knuckler anymore, are you, Big Mouth? Pico, when your legs heal, go drop this wise ass off in an alley. He didn't make the cut. Let him starve to death. I surveyed the rest of the Desians and pointed at them with my index finger and my pinky. You don't rape little girls. If you think that I'm soft, then so be it. Step up and tell me how big of a pussy I am. They all looked at their friend in the corner, and then back to the floor. Good evening. This is Jason Hill, host of the Horror Hill podcast. You've been listening to a chapter from the award-winning novel Knuckle Supper by best-selling author Drew Stepek. Knuckle Supper, Ultimate Gutter Fix Edition, and its critically acclaimed sequel, Knuckle Balled, are available now from Bloodbound Books. Check out the links in the video description and sticky comments below to pick up a copy today and show your support for indie horror. Also, please consider making a donation to Children of the Night today and help end teen prostitution and human trafficking. Children of the Night is a privately funded non-profit organization established in 1979 with the specific purpose of providing intervention in the lives of children who are sexually exploited and vulnerable to, or involved in, prostitution and pornography. Visit childrenofthenight.org for more information today. From author Drew Stepek and all of us here at Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, thanks for listening and for your support.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.